Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Javi. Welcome to Sunday Night Magic here on the Variable Play Network. It is Sunday, March 13, which means it is time for Sunday Night Magic, where we talk about all things magic. Well, with a little bit more skew towards Commander and EDH. So, thank you for those of you who are joining us this evening. If you are not on this live stream and are watching, let's say, the recording of it, thank you so much for checking this out. And please comment and let me know what you think about this episode so I can always improve these. So, tonight's going to be a very interesting episode. I was thinking about what I wanted to do and what topics I wanted to cover, and while going through a lot of recommendations from some of the people in the Magic community, one of the things that came up was somebody asked me if a certain card would even be worth playing in Commander, and that kind of led me down the path of just like reviewing and looking into just they are challenging myself to see if I can actually fit cards into the meta and see if they're even playable. And we're talking about 29 years of Magic the Gathering. They started in 1993. Well, Richard Garfield conceived the game in 1993, and it's pretty much running close to its 30th year. So we're currently anywhere between 28 and 29 right now in the count. So it's it's a library of 20,000 to anywhere between 20 to 30,000 unique cards at this moment, which is wild. Every few months new cards come out. There are new sets that at least come out every quarter, I would say, that have mechanically unique cards. There are always going to be reprints, basic lands, and stuff like that. So out of maybe those 300 cards that come out, you're looking maybe at, I'll give you a conservative number of about 250 new cards. So um, that's a lot that keeps like rolling through the years. So for today's episode, if you guys will indulge me and maybe even join me for a very interesting episode that I would like to call my inaugural episode of Kenneth Commander. We are going to be looking at random Magic the Gathering cards, and then we're going to find out that if we can actually even get them into a commander deck, if they have a place in the meta, or if there's even better versions of them. I'll be going through these cards and then also checking on the comment section from time to time. So, if you have any input that you'd like to share, please comment below, and let's have a great conversation about these cards. Now, to begin, let me go ahead and just load up the pretty much the random magic cards. And what we're using is called MTG Random. I would recommend that you give this a try if you'd like to, put yourself up to this challenge. So let me go ahead and add it into the stream. Here we go. So pretty much when you load up the site, you have the options of generating a random card, a random unstable, but that's like the gray unplayable cards really, a random planeswalker, or if you also want a random grueling from Magic the Gathering. The final one is a random D20, so you can even use this as a D20 if you happen to be playing Magic mechanics that requires you to roll a dice. So I guess it kind of has a interesting use there. But more importantly, like what we have on screen here, I just kind of stopped the loading so that's why there's no image. But pretty much a random card was generated. What we're going to be doing for today's episode is I'm going to be looking at let's put a target at 10 cards. We're going to be looking at 10 random cards from Magic the Gathering, and we're going to see really how viable they are to be played in Commander. If we come across cards that are not a fit, or let's say a basic land pops up or something, we're not going to count that towards the 10. So we're going to skip that and move forward. And just to keep everything in check here, I want to make sure I keep note of everything so that at least we know where we're at on this count. So let's get started. Let's load up the first card. So the very first card that we're looking at is Factor Fiction. All right, so I will there a little bit of a warning. This site does take a little bit of time to load up the card, but this actually makes for great conversation because we can focus on the name of the card. We can talk about the casting cost. So it is 3 colorless and 1 blue. It is a instant. Instants are always amazing. And here, let's go through the abilities. So we are looking at reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those into 2 piles. Put one of those piles into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So let me just go ahead and just start this by saying that Factor Fiction is actually an amazing card for 4 to cast, and technically, at being at instant speed, means that you can play this out of your turn. You can get this. You can play this pretty much at the end of your opponent's turn, right before your own, which will give you these cards. You reveal the top 5 cards of your library. So how that works and helps you is that that's 5 less draws, or pretty much, yeah, it's almost like going ahead 5 turns. Your opponent can set them into 2 piles. Now they're gonna obviously try to separate cards that they think work together, but there are even instances that you can even ask your opponents for help. Let's say that you're trying to find an answer to opponent B. You can ask opponent C to arrange the cards in a particular way. So there is a little bit of politics that even come into this card. So it's amazing. And technically, let's just say that they divide this as equally as possible and put like 2 good cards and 3 medium level cards to one, and you chose the two. You still technically drew 2 cards. The other 3 go to your graveyard. That's fine. In Commander, that's not necessarily a problem because your graveyard is also a resource for you in the game. So you're technically really ahead by like 1 card, casting Factor Fiction, and then you get 2 cards, so one replaces the other, and then you're up a card, and then you can draw for your turn. So you're actually in a very good place here. This card has had even adjusted versions of it to make it a little bit weaker, or that one that they're face down so you don't get to see the cards when you make your choice. So there are lesser versions of this, but this is one of the original effects of this. What we're looking at is a Magic Online like theme version of it, but Factor Fiction has been reprinted several times and it's really worth it. So this is actually a really good first card to start today's episode. This is a definite include if you are playing blue. Doesn't have to be mono blue, but if you are running blue, I would consider putting Factor Fiction into your deck. Hey, we have a comment. Hey, Ron. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining. So, we're going to be going through random magic cards from MTG Random to see if they are really viable for the Commander format. So, tonight we answer the question, can it Commander? All right. So, let's go ahead and jump over to the next one. I think that one was pretty good. Good start. Good start. So, let's hit the random button and generate the next card. We're looking at Midnight Ritual. So that is an X, 2 colorless, and a black. Okay, first off, it is a sorcery, which means you can only play this during your turn. Okay, so this is a 10th edition card. And remove X target creature cards in your graveyard from the game. For each creature card removed this way, put a 2/2 black zombie token creature into play. Okay, so this one's tough. If you're playing maybe a zombie tribal deck, you could consider this, but zombie tribal decks tend to play from the graveyard. So why would you give up your creatures in your graveyard? Because you probably want to cast them again, or probably have a way of bringing them back into the game. So maybe this doesn't go into zombie tribal. This is probably more steered towards well, definitely a deck that doesn't care about its graveyard, because you're really literally getting rid of them. You're exiling creatures from your own. If you could have targeted your opponent's graveyards with this, it may have been worth it. You're paying 3 and then X. So let's say you wanted to get 2 zombies. You're technically paying 5 to produce 2 zombies. And this is at sorcery speed, which is already terrible. You're targeting your own graveyard, which is terrible. And at the end of it, you get two zombie tokens. This one is probably not a good card to use. I would say that I would definitely pass on this. It's a rare, as you can see by the gold X in the center of the card. So this is a rare, but probably meant for a totally different format. This is not for Commander. Um, there might, if you're running on a terrible budget, or like if you're intentionally building a really crappy deck, then sure, by all means, run it. But I wouldn't recommend it. This is this is inefficient at well, not really not the best example of being inefficient, but it's just not worth it. All right, so that's a good number two. Okay, so we've we're doing okay. Um, for anyone that is watching on the stream, or even those of you who are watching this on the recorded on the Variable Play Network Facebook page or our YouTube channel, feel free to add in some comments what you think about these cards. So let's jump into the next one. Next random card that we are looking at is, oh, it's white bordered. Oh no. Okay, wait. We definitely cannot do. I know what this card is. So, wow, I wish I could translate it. Wasn't there a way to do that? But so this is Festering Goblin. So I'm familiar with the card. I don't even know what language this is in. Uh we can, well, as much as I want to go into the details, it's a one to cast 1/1 goblin. If it dies, another creature gets -1/-1. But I don't think it would be fair to use this. So let's switch over to the next card, and this is pretty good for goblin or zombie tribal, maybe. You might be able to have a use for it. But let's not count this one. Next. Okay, here we go. Puncturing light. A one colorless and one white. Nice angel artwork loading up there. Okay, ooh, it looks like it's from the Avacyn set. Yep, there you go. It is from Shadows over Innistrad. It is an instant. Destroy target attacking or blocking creature with power 3 or less. Okay, let's go with that. So we are discussing Puncturing Light. So first off, one white, one colorless for an instant. Not bad. That's pretty good. In terms of cost, it's efficient enough. Now let's see what it does. Destroy target attacking or blocking creature. That would have been okay on its own, but now you're focused on power 3 or less. In the game of Commander, you're usually worried about the biggest creatures. So I don't see why you would need to kill a smaller creature. And one more is that it's only destroy. Again, like from the previous cards that we were looking at, destroy isn't exactly a bad thing. Sorry, having a creature in your graveyard isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can always bring it back. Like even if a commander, if you destroyed it, they can send it back to their command zone. So this isn't as useful as you would think it would be. This is probably pretty good, like in a very limited environment. Hey, Kale, good evening. Yes, this is technically like a random MTG review, but specifically to find out that if these cards are a fit for Commander. So, we might come across some pretty good cards. We've actually seen a pretty crap rare just previously. Now we're looking at a common that does kind of have some potential. But I'm going to be perfectly honest here and tell you that this one's a no for me for three specific reasons. First is they have to be attacking or blocking. So there's an aspect of that, the game had, or these creatures have to be in a particular state in order for you to use this spell. So if there's no reason to attack, or if they have more than one blocker, and then the blocker has power 3 or less, or sorry, 4 or greater, technically they're not even a legal target. So that's the second part, that there's this limitation for the power. And then the third being that it's only a destroy effect. It's not an exile, which is permanently removing. So, all in all, you're pretty much using one card to remove one target. So, single target removal is it's not the most efficient route to be taking in Magic the Gathering. So, and especially in Commander. That's why you want to make sure that you're really getting like a bang for your buck, which is usually exile, which is like removing it from the game altogether, or making sure that no one can do anything about that, or making having a surprise element to it. The fact that this is required to be part of a combat step also limits the card. So this one again is a pass. So number three is a pass for puncturing light. So far we are 1 for 3. I hope we get some better cards. Let's go to the next one. Okay, next random card. Next random card. So thank you, MTG Random, for this really good system here. Although I really hope that the cards would load faster. Okay, like I said earlier, we are not doing basic lands. So this one is an auto skip, okay? And we're even looking at a gold bordered world championship land. But okay, again, we're close to like what, 20,000 to 30,000 unique cards in Magic the Gathering. This stuff's going to happen. Next, next. Here we go. So we are looking at, oh, here we go. Nice. This is a pretty good pick. So we are looking at Darian, King of the Keldor. Okay, so this is a 6 to cast that is 4 colorless and 2 white. He's a legendary creature, human lord. Whenever you're dealt damage that is pertaining to you as a player, you may put that many 1/1 white soldier creatures into the battlefield. And he is a 3/3. So, a lot to take in here. So, this is from the Cold Snap expansion. We are looking at a legendary creature, which means that you could potentially have Darian be your commander. Do you really want a mono white 6 to cast commander? Probably not. Okay, white is unfortunately one of the more most, I would say, yeah, it's really the bottom right now. It is the most inefficient commander color on its own. It pairs really well with other colors, but I would highly discourage anyone from ever trying to run mono white unless you're using very, very specific commanders. And they also have a very specific set of cards to be used. So, going back to this, Darian is a human lord. So, in terms of creature type, you have human tribal. You can definitely focus on that. There is no lord tribal, to be honest. And he does produce 1/1 white soldier creatures. Funny enough, they're not white, they're not human soldiers. So if you look into Magic the Gathering's history, you will find that there are soldier tokens, there are human tokens, and there are also human soldier tokens. Funny enough, all three of them are unique and distinct from one another. You'd think they'd be the same, but they're actually not. So 1/1 white soldier tokens means that you technically can steer towards maybe a soldier tribal. And next to that is you are getting X amount of 1/1s, and they all come into play. So you have enter the battlefield effects. You also have pretty much attackers or blockers or sacrifice fodder. These 1/1s can be used to do something else. Now, it also says whenever you're dealt damage, which means that you could probably hurt yourself, whether it be like a mana vault or maybe some kind of mana crypt effect, or there are cards that do hurt you intentionally. Like you can even pay life, but paying life is not considered damage. So you could circumvent this and get a lot of 1/1s out of it. I know that if we go into EDH Rec, I'm pretty sure that there are existing deck builds right now for Darian, which is pretty good. Hey, oh, sorry, screen modified there for a moment. All right, so I think that this one's a good pass. On the right build, on the right circumstances, you would definitely want to have Darian in your deck because he can produce 1/1s, and it also discourages opponents from attacking you. That, like if you hit me, let's say that, oh, you're going to attack me with an 8/8. We have 40 life here. Like, okay, giving me 8/1/1s might even come to bite you in the ass later on. So like me, as if I were facing against somebody with a Darian, I would want to take care of him first before I would even consider hitting an opponent, because having multiple creatures ready for like blocking could definitely save them later on in the game. And if you manage to build it around, let's say, having anthem effects that make them larger, that they could become a threat even worse than the 8/8 that I would have used to attack in that example. So this one's pretty good. I would say Darian has potential and it can be used in Commander. Not as a commander, but definitely in your 99. Okay, moving on to our next card. So we are going to number 5 for today's episode. Let's hit a random and okay, IV Elemental. So we have X in a green. So far, so good. Artwork looks pretty good. Okay, what does IV Elemental do? Lots of little vines. Okay, so it is an elemental creature. Okay, hence the name IV Elemental. IV Elemental comes into play with X +1/+1 counters. Okay. Um, So basically, if you paid, let's say, a green and 1 mana, you would get a 1/1. Not that great. This one again is a little bit of a niche thing to look at. Remember that for the new set for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, they introduced a new mechanic called Modified. Any creature that has an enchantment, like an aura, equipment, or a counter on it is considered modified. So if you happen to be playing or building around that whole concept of modified, this thing can come into play with counters, which is immediate. But if anyone has any effect that removes enter the battlefield, this thing just comes in as a 0/0. It will come in to die. You could technically also pay 1 green and just bring it in as a 0/0 because you're looking for a death trigger. But to be honest, I mean, it's not reusable. That's just one time it just dies and you get your effect. Okay, but I think there are better cards that do that. This one is well, I'm really leaning more like I would say this is I wouldn't use it. I really wouldn't use it. You can push it if you're going with a specific theme like elementals +1/+1 counters, or even using the whole modified ruling mechanic. So it could see play in certain decks, but we're looking at, I would say, a 90% no to 10% yes. That you're really gonna have to be forcing this card in, and you gotta be getting something out of it in order to be worth your time. Hey, hello, Otter. Hi, Anna. Thank you for joining tonight's episode. Again, my our favorite non-magic playing viewer. I hope that you find tonight's episode interesting and entertaining. Hey, another one. Hey, Nico. Yes, it is technically arguable to be a Hydra. You are correct. It's an elemental, but yes, it does. It can actually fit into a Hydra deck if you really want to force it in, because it's all about having X count and then +1/+1 counters on it. It just doesn't have anything else going on for it. It has no other abilities, so it's super cheap with 1 green and X. But what else are you getting from this thing? So okay, again, 90% no, 10% yes. It's a rare, so there's that, but this is probably a bulk rare. So, I don't know. I would really lean towards a no, but it still has a sliver of hope. Okay, with that, so again, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Nico. Nice to have some people on. Please, by all means, share any feedback or comments that you have on these cards. So let's jump on to the next one. Next card, we're going at number 6. Okay, what? Okay, that is an interesting name for a card. Delusions of Mediocrity. That is a really, really interesting name. And it's white bordered. What set is this from? Okay, 7th edition. We are looking at 3 colorless and 1 blue for an enchantment. When Delusions of Mediocrity comes into play, you gain 10 life. Okay. When Delusions of Mediocrity leaves play, you lose 10 life. Okay, so this is really a crappier version of Illusions of Grandeur. Illusions of Grandeur would give you 20 life and then 20 when it leaves, and it has a cumulative upkeep, which means that it's guaranteed to break itself eventually. That card was built around donating it to an opponent, that you'll gain 20 life, you give it to an opponent, they can't pay for the upkeep, it breaks, they lose 20 life. So you could like win outright in a normal game of Magic. But this, however, is only for 10 life, so you're only really cutting them in half, and it doesn't have any mechanism that will break itself. So we're also talking about Commander here. We're talking about 40 life. 10 life is nothing. It's a dent that can easily be rectified. So I see its purpose. I see what it does. It can technically buy you time. If your opponents have no way of dealing with enchantments, then you're safe. If you're playing against a red or a black deck, they have like maybe one or two chances to break this thing. But also, do you really need 10 life? Like, what exactly are you going to be doing that needs that for the cost of four? So, this one is a no. I get what it does, but it doesn't do it as good as other cards have done in the past. So, this is not going to work with the whole donate mechanic that you typically see for cards that have this effect. Um, I don't know, because even just losing the 10 life also doesn't really do anything. So this card doesn't have a place in your deck unless you have some kind of mechanism that really helps you when you gain life. Let's just say, for example, that oh, whenever you gain life, all of your creatures get like a bump of tokens or something like that. Okay, this is a one-time gain 10 life, so it's even a single effect. It's not even a cumulative like gain one life for the next 10 turns or something. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's giving you anything to really use. So, you know what? This card is truly mediocre. It is not a delusion of mediocrity. It is a mediocre card. And scene. You know what? Wait, I'm gonna try to zoom in just a little bit. Let's see if we get that better. Okay, I think that works better. Yeah, okay. Zoomed in just a little bit more so you guys can read more of the card. Let's jump to the next random card. So we are at number 7 for today's episode. All right, so we are looking at a and oh my god. What okay, awesome. What an awesome card to talk about. Great. So we are looking at Sublime Archangel. This is from the Ultimate Masters edition, but this used to be a mythic actually and has been demoted down to a rare. Sublime Angel is a 4 to cast angel that is 2 colorless and 2 white. So you are getting an angel. It is a 4/3 flying angel, which is pretty good. And then it has Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you have, let's say, a 1/1 with the Sublime Archangel and it attacks, it gets +1/+1 because Sublime Archangel has Exalted and there is a single creature attacking. But it has a second effect. Each creature you control has Exalted. So it pretty much gives the effect to all of your creatures. What that means is, let's say you have 10 creatures and you decide to attack with just one of them. All of them see that a single attacker is going through and all of the Exalted triggers, which means that that single attacker gets +10/+10. The potential of this is so high, especially in a game of Commander that, you know what, your commander just has to deal 21 damage to an opponent. Even with Exalted for like 3 or 4 +1/+1s, adds up. I mean, it has its own base power. And if you're also trying to get creatures to get bigger, that effect of +1/+1 until adds or is in effect until the end of your turn. So let's say that you had an ability that sacrifice a creature, gain life equal to its power. Okay. After you attack with the exalted triggers, let's say that you did give something plus 10 plus 10, and then you decide to sacrifice it. So you now gain an additional benefit. So not only did you get a really strong attack, but then also you can technically use this modification to the creature for other effects. Let's say that you have an extra combat spell. It already got plus 10 plus 10. And then you're going to make it attack alone again. It's going to get a second plus 10 plus 10, essentially giving that attacker plus 20 plus 20. This is actually a really, really strong card, but it doesn't encourage you to attack with an army. You can't go wide with it. Instead, you are focusing on a single attacker, which is also pretty good in terms of strategy. At least you're holding up defense, you have blockers. I mean, the archangel itself here is a 4/3 flyer, which means that it could be your attacker or it could also be your blocker if you're just trying to maybe preserve it and keep it in the game. This one is this encourages combat for sure, and not wide strategy of hitting multiple players. It makes one creature an immediate threat. Your opponent's attention goes towards the attacker because it got so big that oftentimes that they forget it's because of the archangel. So it even has a really tricky way of self-preservation by turning attention away from it into a different creature. Just don't use the archangel itself to attack, and I don't think that that's going to be the creature that they're going to be wasting removal on. I mean, if you are token build, going back to earlier where that we're looking at Darian, let's say that you get like five soldiers, or even let's say if you're hurting yourself every turn, even for one damage, that is still one more exalted being added on to any attacker that you have. You can really essentially make a massive threat. One of the things that you might want to consider here is that if you have creatures that have trample, they get really big. Next, if you have creatures with poison effects on them or infect, you could outright kill a player if they're not careful. So, this is a really good card to add into your 99 if you are playing white and if you are a combat driven, if you're using a combat driven strategy. All right. Hey, Nico, thank you again for the comment. Yes, would be nice on Rafik. That's correct. So, Rafik of the Many is a blue, white, and green creature. So, it's three colors. It also has an effect that if a creature attacks alone, it gets double strike. And I think it also does have Exalted on its own. So, basically, you could give something a buff and you could give it double strike. So, it's almost like having two combats. It's a really good idea. Thank you for the suggestion. I did I did actually run both of them together, and I think that I wasn't able to pull that off, but they were both inside the same as Sarah, the Angel of War. I think, yeah, I think that was the deck, or Asura Angel of War. But you know, this is an include. I would say yes. So far we've at least hit on, I would say, we're at least two or three cards in that are includes for your commander decks. So going through random cards has been pretty good. So we have like Darian, we have Factor Fiction, and we have Sublime Archangel. Interesting choices. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, here we go. Exalted, Extra Combat, Finest Hour. Oh yeah, very very true. Yes, Finest Hour is another effect also that this is all specific towards the Bant or blue white green expansion, or sorry, I would say Shard of Magic. So when you say Bant, you're talking of blue white green, but once new Capenna comes out, it's going to be going by a different name. So be prepared to learn a brand new name for that color combination. Let's jump into number 8 of 10 for tonight. So we are looking at number 8. We are looking at Eaten by Spiders. Okay, it is from Avacyn Restored. We are looking at a 3 to cast instant. Interesting. So we have 1 green, 2 colorless for an instant. And destroy target creature with flying and all equipment attached to that creature. Hmm. Okay, there are other effects like this. I believe it's like plummet, and yeah, there are several cards that do this effect. So it is destroy target flyer. One of the things that green struggles with, of course, is that it doesn't really have flying creatures. So instead, it has creatures that have reach and also effects like this that can take out flyers. It's pretty good. For its cost, three is a lot, but at least there's only one green in the cost. And you can technically splash this onto any like dual, triple color deck. You're fine. It's instant, which means that you have control of when you need to do this. You don't need the creature to be attacking, it just has to have flying. And then you get the additional benefit of breaking any equipment that happens to be on it. But again, just like what I discussed for the other removal spell that we were looking at earlier, this is only destroy. So it's not really dealing with the problem when we're talking about commander. You really want to get it out of the game. And more importantly, this is only a single target removal. So you're really spending one card just to get rid of one threat. You have three opponents. So I would rather use a different card to deal with the problem. Something that can go wider, something like Beast Within, because it can destroy target permanent. There are different ways of dealing with a threat that is flying, even despite having like a creature with reach to block the flyer. And maybe just if that thing was bigger, you could even kill the attacker. This is not an efficient use of your 99. It's a good card. You could run it if you want to. Let's just say that you're running like some kind of thematic spider deck. Sure, throw it in for flavor. But you know what? The spiders themselves already have reach, which means that you're probably not even going to need this card. So, number 8 here is a no for me. It's there are better cards to use. It takes up a slot, but it's not a terrible card. It's just that there are better ways to get this done if that's what you're hoping to do. Green has so much artifact destruction that you don't need this card. And then they have ways of dealing with flyers, or if you're combining this with a different color, other colors have better ways of dealing with flying threats. Great, let's go to number 9. Number 9 is okay, oh, awesome. Thank you. This is a really good card, and it's actually a really, really good version of it. So, I actually did feature this in a previous episode when I talked about my top 10 planeswalkers. So, we are looking at the character of Dak Faden. Rest in peace, buddy. Rest in peace. So, this guy was eliminated from the Magic the Gathering storyline in the War of the Spark expansion, unfortunately. But Dak Faden here is a 3 to cast planeswalker. He is one colorless, one red, and one blue. And so you're looking at legendary planeswalker Dak. All right, so this is the mythic edition of him, which is the full art, which is really nice. So you're looking at literally the red handed thief of Magic the Gathering. And his abilities are as follows. He comes in the game with 3 loyalty counters. So consider it like 3 life, like he is like an additional player that you get to control. +1, target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. So you can target yourself or you can target your opponent if you're putting them in a situation wherein there is no benefit to them to drawing, or if you have effects that need them to draw. So there's a whole swath of cards that come into mind when we're looking at that. But the most important thing that he does is actually his second ability, which is gain control of target artifact. Period. No end of turn, no if it cost this or if it just came into play, nothing. It is flat out gain control of target artifact. You bring in your biggest thing like, oh guys, here's my Blightsteel Colossus, 11/11 Infect Indestructible. And Dak just says, give it to me. And you can't even do anything about it. So, nice thing that they did with Planeswalkers is that when you cast Planeswalkers, you can still counter and you can deal with that. But once the Planeswalker is in the game, you maintain priority. You are allowed to activate it at least once. Sure, they can counter the effect, but there are only very few cards that do that. And technically, what you're holding on to here is a 3 to cast, take any artifact you want. Typically, that will die because with one loyalty counter, somebody just needs to attack it, and that's that. But if he happens to survive, you can start building him back up with the whole +1. Drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards is a really nice way of filtering through your 99 cards. Again, the graveyard is not the end of your cards, especially in Commander. There are so many ways to get those cards back or even cast from the graveyard, oftentimes even for free. So I wouldn't consider that a downside. And guess what? He even has one more ability. If you manage to make it to 6, which is oftentimes never really going to happen, you get an emblem that whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, you gain control of those permanents. So if you have even any effect that says tap target permanent or untap target permanent, it becomes yours. So he doesn't even steal artifacts anymore. He'll just take anything that's in the game, even lands from your opponent. I've never seen Dak Faden pull this off in any game I've ever played because, like I said, after his first effect of stealing an artifact, he typically dies. So late game, people don't really use the gain control of artifact anymore. They use him more for draw advantage of trying to get deeper into your library. So this one's a really good card that if you are running red and blue and are trying to accelerate gaining an artifact from your opponent is a big deal. If you are also trying to get hand advantage, if you're trying to fill up your graveyard, you definitely want to use this. So this one again is a recommend. So this is the fourth out of the 10 cards that we've gone through tonight that I would say is a auto include or a card that I would recommend you use in Commander if you are in the colors of red and blue and really have that specific need. But there'll always be artifacts to steal, and there's never ever a bad time to draw cards. So again, rest in peace, Dak, but you definitely belong in Commander. And so for our last card, we are looking at number 10, random. Okay. Oh my God. What a way to end this game. Oh my God. So, okay, tonight we end at 40%. We have 4 recommended cards. You are looking at the original card of banding. Benalish Hero has been reprinted so many times in the past and it carries one of the dumbest abilities that has been conceived in Magic, which is banding. So you are looking at a 1 to cast 1/1 summon hero. Not really. You ain't a hero, to be honest. It is a 1/1 with banding. What that means is that technically it can attack or block by combining its powers with another creature. Let's say that you have a 3/3. You can kind of block as a 4/4 or attack as a 4/4. Um, the rulings around it are so weird. I did cover this in a previous episode as some of Magic's worst mechanics. It made combat so confusing because it looks like you have 2 attackers, but you're actually only attacking with one because you're using the banding effect, and when blocking it made everything so confusing. Banding is a blight on, or no, well, not necessarily, it is a skid mark on Magic's history. So what a what a fitting way to end this episode with one really absolutely crappy card. It doesn't really do anything. Okay, you're getting a 1 to cast 1/1, fine. Banding requires another creature to be in the game. So it really doesn't do anything on its own. It needs something else. So there are better one to cast one ones. Magic has even progressed to the point that you can get one to cast two twos or one to cast one ones again that have abilities like producing mana or getting bigger or um I don't know, there's so many effects that I can think of. There's even like a 1/1 trample that exists that if you manages to get it big, you get at least your money's worth. Okay, so whew, this one's just like even down to the artwork. My God, there's nothing happening behind it. It's just plain yellow. You think that they could have done something to keep you a little bit more interested. So well, you know what? We're not focusing on the art. The art has really nothing to do, I guess, with Commander. Technically, you could even be playing artless cards. It would just matter what their cost, what they are, and what they do. But okay, that is pretty much where we're closing today's episode. So again, you want to try this on your own, MTG random, give it a try, and ask yourself that can you actually really be saying, "Oh, hey Nick, you really okay? You know what? Go ahead. I highly encourage you to check out what banding is. But again, like I said, banding is a combat strategy that lets you combine two creatures together. So Benalish Hero and a 3/3. Basically, you can attack Benalish Hero as a 4/4, or you can block as a 4/4, so to speak. But why not just block individually? It doesn't necessarily make sense. So it really just throws combat mechanics into such weird places that they realized how bad this is, and so you've never seen banding used ever again. All right, so that is it for tonight's episode. Thank you for everyone who joined. Ron, Keo, Anna, Nico, and Nick. Thank you so much for dropping by. Um, I definitely want to do more of this. So this is let's consider this as episode one, or the very first installment of Kenneth Commander. I hope to see you guys on the next episode of Sunday Night Magic. Until then, you guys keep gaming.